In complete coach speak, the only game that matters is the one that's today. And that's been the message to the Crimson Tide since their loss to Ole Miss back in September. And the Tide have continued to roll since. After a big win against LSU last week, Alabama's playoff hopes still intact. But first, today's matchup against 20th ranked Mississippi State in Starkville. Nick Saban and his second-ranked Crimson Tide came out doing what they do best, defense. State drives the field, goes for it on 4th and goal, and Bama denies. Huge stop in the first quarter keeps the game scoreless. Then something we haven't seen this season. Second quarter, Cyrus Jones on the punt return. He takes this one 69 yards for the score, the first Bama TD off a punt since November 23rd, 2013. Big second quarter for the Tide. On 3rd and 5, Jake Coker connects with Calvin Ridley, and thanks to a big block from Ardarius Stewart, this one goes 60 yards for the freshman's 4th touchdown this season, and the Tide up 14-zip. Now let's talk some Alabama defense. They can stop the run, they can stop the pass, setting a season-high 9 sacks, one of the top teams in the country for this. State's Dak Prescott owns 36 school records, but today it's Bama owning him. Marlon Humphrey with the pick, his second this season, and Dak's only second interception thrown this year as well. And we can't do Alabama highlights without Derrick Henry. He's making a strong case for Heisman and adds to it today with 204 yards, rushing on 22 carries, 2 touchdowns. Bama rolls on to win 31-16. Here's your big stats of the game. Henry for Heisman or Alabama's defense. Either works. Here's WVUA23 Sports Director Gary Harris with more.
Last week in Tuscaloosa at Bryant-Denny Stadium, Alabama played its most complete game of the season, dominating LSU in all 3 phases of the game: offense, defense, and the kicking game. Saturday afternoon here at Davis-Wade Stadium in Starkville, that was not the case. Alabama was outgained in total yards, but big plays on offense and a smothering defense that sacked Dak Prescott 9 times was the difference. And on the scoreboard, the Tide rolled 31-6 over the Bulldogs.
We didn't play very well on offense in the first half. I think we played a little better in the second half. Kind of a weird game, you know, where every touchdown was a big play. I think the way Mississippi State plays defense, you know, there's a lot of big, little to it. They give you a lot of negative plays, which I think going into this game they had created 84 negative plays. But then sometimes, you know, you get a hat on a hat and you make a big play against them. And we certainly did a good job of doing that a few times today.
You give them credit for following the plan to win. It's a pretty simple deal. If you want to hand me the sheet at the end of a game with just the statistics on it, you don't even have to put a score on it. You'll be able to tell you who won the game without ever looking at a score or watching any of that stuff.
For the second straight game, Derrick Henry went over 200 yards. He had 210 against LSU on 38 carries, 208 against Mississippi State on 22 carries, including 2 long touchdowns, as he staked his claim again as the leading Heisman Trophy candidate in the country.
Mississippi State is a great team, and they're good at what they do. We just want to come in and get a great win against a good team, and that's what we try to do.
You know, anytime you play Mississippi State, it's always a front 7 battle. Just like today, they did a lot of stunning, and when they do that, they're vulnerable at sometimes to kind of overshoot gaps, and Derrick took advantage of that. We took advantage of that.
With the victory, Alabama improves to 9-1 overall, 6-1 in the SEC. Next week, Bama hosts Charleston Southern in the final home game of the season, and in 2 weeks, it's on to Jordan-Hare Stadium for the Iron Bowl against Auburn. If Alabama wins that game, they'll play in the SEC Championship game against the Florida Gators. Reporting from Davis-Wade Stadium in Starkville, I'm Gary Harris, WVUA23 Sports.
And let me repeat, Alabama won 31-6. Auburn facing Georgia at home. First quarter, Kerryon Johnson runs in from 7 yards out, and just like that, the Tigers have the lead. But Jeremy Johnson with a costly interception leads to a Bulldogs field goal. Auburn defense holding Georgia to under 100 yards passing, shutting down Georgia QB Grayson Lambert. Third quarter, Isaiah McKenzie makes it a tied game at 10 before Georgia takes over in the fourth quarter. Thanks to Auburn turnovers, Georgia wins 20-13.
That was a tough one today. You know, our defense, I thought, played very well. Held them to 243 yards. They got a lot of playmakers on that side of the football. Thought our offense did a good job in the first half. Obviously, the second half didn't get it done. And, you know, uncharacteristic, we had the 3 turnovers. We've been protecting the football extremely well. 3 turnovers are big. And then, of course, we gave up the special teams touchdown when the game was tied, and that was pretty uncharacteristic too. But bottom line is we're disappointed, and that was a tough one.
Vandy gets their second SEC win. Texas A&M, no problem over Western Carolina. Missouri's long week ends with the win, and Ole Miss on their bye. They have LSU next. The Miles Golden Bears in Montgomery tonight take on Albany State for the SIAC Conference title game. Bears starting off strong on the opening kickoff. Christian Mays takes it all the way down to the 5-yard line, leads to a 20-yard field goal to put Miles up 3-0. Later in the first, David Whipple throws a beautiful pass to Trey Smith. Bear with a great field goal position. That leads to a 2-yard touchdown by Jamarcus Nance. Golden Bears go on to win 20-7. This is their second title. And that's all the time we have for sports, but we'll be right back after this.